the opportunity. And I think our recording has just started. So, at the end of the event, we're going to run a little bit of a slideshow of other case studies, but we're also going to leave the chat open and leave you the opportunity to network or make contact. So if there are people that you've spotted during the day that you want to say hello to, then there will be an opportunity to do that. So hopefully quite an interactive event. It's a bit of a challenge online as a webinar, but we have factored in lots of time for people to have their say through either Mentimeter or through questions. So on that, if Alex could start my my slides. So as I say, most of today is going to be about case studies. We're not going to give you lots of information about the program and the funding, etc. But it does fall to me to set the scene a little. So essentially, when we embarked on the Accelerate program design, it was recognised that there's significant capabilities in life sciences, medical devices, and diagnostics in Wales. That's across the across academia, across our clinical institutions, and in industry in the diagnostics, medical device, and pharmaceutical supply chain sector. So we knew that we had significant strength. To put a number to that, Wales punches about 20% above its weight in terms of UK averages when it comes to employment, GDP, or number of companies in life sciences. We've got about 20% more than you would expect considering the size of our country. So we know we've got significant capabilities in that area. So that produces an economic opportunity, and it's an opportunity that can be well matched and supported by our universities and with our clinical and healthcare providers. So the challenge, so we know we've got the skills, we know we've got the ability. The challenge is that over half of Welsh Government's budget is spent on health and social care, over £7 billion per annum. And as everybody on this forum, and more widely will know, that's the increasing costs of health and social care are not sustainable. We've had some quite disruptive events in recent months that will provide even an increasing challenge in terms of health and social care. But even before the COVID-19 pandemic, we were being challenged to meet those budgets. So really, the only way we're going to achieve that is through innovation. We're going to have to do things in a new way. We're going to have to do things in a different way. And so the opportunity to do that was clear. The case was made, and the funding was sourced through the Welsh Office of European Funding, WEFO, and the partners who are all contributing as well to the program. And combined, we created the Accelerate program. So if I go on to the next slide. So the Accelerate program, and so I've discussed the inputs, the academic expertise, the clinical expertise, the market expertise. We've translated that through the program into opportunities to test, evaluate, research, collaborate, adapt, develop, scale, prototype, and deploy. That's great. Essentially, what we're doing is applying academic and research resource to projects that have come from industry, and we're, as the name would imply, we're accelerating those projects closer to market so that they can be launched and so that they can have an impact. So the kind of outputs that we're looking for, the ones that we measure, are things such as new companies, new enterprises, new products, and products adopted by the NHS in Wales, obviously, because if we create all of those great things but they're not adopted, then their opportunity to have an impact is limited. So we're really looking to include our clinical partners in this project as well, to make sure that these products actually find their way to market. The outcomes of that: jobs created, patents, relationships, long-term, this is softer target to measure, but the longer term relationships between universities, the NHS and companies is a really important outcome of the programme. And we're already seeing that happen with companies starting their engagement with academia through the Accelerate programme, but continuing to work together in many, many ways, and that will carry on throughout. And an improved culture towards innovation, the opportunities to innovate being well established now. They should be, it should become the norm that companies can approach healthcare, can work with academia, and we can innovate to meet the challenges that I've already outlined. And all of that sounds like great stuff, but none of it really matters unless we can start measuring the outputs. And the outputs really are improved health and social care for people who live in Wales, improved economic benefits for people who live in Wales, and combining those things, an uplift in the socio-economic measures that improve lives in the wider sense. So there's a very clear logic. We work with companies, we work with academia, we put them together, we try and develop health and social care projects that can meet the challenges that we're facing, and by doing that, we can improve the economy and health and social care for everybody. So quite a simple message, but quite a complicated challenge. So if we could go to the next slide. The partners, I've mentioned the partners in a number of ways, and the way that we're structured is that we have three university partners: Cardiff University, who run the CIA, Swansea University, HTC, and the University of Wales Trinity St David's, the ATIC Centre. And then the fourth partner is the Life Science Hub Wales. So each of the universities has their particular strengths that are well known and well sought after. And then the Life Science Hub provides two additional functions. The Hub Accelerate program management team is hosted by the Hub, and then the Hub also provides a service to onboard, scope out, and try and formulate the projects that are then passed on to our academic partners. So if I can just go to the next slide. That's me done. I think I'm reasonably on time. Tried to fly through that at a pace. And now I'm going to introduce our first speakers. As I say, the format for today is case studies. So the first case study is going to be presented by Dr. Daniel Rees and Chelsea Davis. Daniel is the Innovation Technologist for Swansea University Medical School's Health Technology Centre, and Chelsea Davis is the Sales and Marketing Manager for CPR Global Tech. So I'm very happy to hand over to Daniel and Chelsea to talk about how they've been supporting dementia care. Dan.
Thank you very much for the introduction too. Next slide, please. Thanks, Alex. So thank you for the introduction again. I'm here today, as Gwyn has introduced us, as myself as Innovation Technologist from the Healthcare Technology Centre at Swansea University. And I'm very fortunate to be joined today also by Chelsea, who we've been working with over the last couple of months. And the idea, next slide please, for this talk would be to kind of give you a bit of background about Healthcare Technology Centre and kind of what we're doing, what we offer. A couple of examples then to really show the kind of spread and the diversity of projects that we're involved in, and then get into a bit more nitty-gritty, into a bit more detail around CPR Global Tech and how we've been collaborating together for innovation in dementia care. Next slide, please. So where are we based? We're based at Swansea University Bay Campus, more specifically inside the Institute of Life Science at the medical school. But we are always cognizant that we do have is a network and a vast array of buildings which house capabilities to facilitate us on our journey. So if we just take a look at this slide, for example, on the bottom right next to the European logo there. We've got Morris, we have Singleton Hospital, that's a stone's throw away from us. We've also got kind of experiments and research going on at other hospital sites too, which we are linked with through academics and clinical academics in Morriston Hospital. And in the middle there, in the bottom, is the data science building, and that houses the SAIL data bank. So it and really allows us to leverage some of the themes in population health and data analytics that Swansea University and more particularly the Medical School of Computer Science have to offer. So next slide, please. So we're, as Gwyn has already mentioned, we're a pan-Wales research development and innovation programme, and we see ourselves sitting, yes, inside the ecosystem with Accelerate. We are, you know, all of us work together towards the common goal, but all of us then fit inside this pan-Wales ecosystem. So what we are aiming to do in our part as HTC Accelerate really is to leverage the pre-existing skills and capabilities of the medical school, and really make it a test bed really for testing and trial of devices, new products, services, processes, you name it. What we like to think is we can really accelerate or enhance the ideas from the bench side effectively to the bedside. So really turning ideas and products and services and processes through collaborative work with partners such as CPR Global Tech and others, through R&D activity. And what you'll see in a couple of the examples is, although we are, you know, we're located in Wales, we have, you know, a remit for Wales, that some of the companies that we're engaging with have a footprint outside of that. So it's really great to see how the kind of ripple effect of some of the research work that we're doing here really kind of literally transcends the barriers of nations, you know what I mean? So if I can ask for the next slide, please. So what do we offer? What do we offer in terms of visceral offering? We've got a dedicated wet lab laboratory with state-of-the-art equipment. So this allows us really to conduct all sorts of wet lab experiments, the kind of molecular biology experiments. We've got the PCR kit, we've got the Western blot machines. We've even got some automated and some manual kind of microscope equipment. And if we haven't got it, chances are the Institute of Life Science, in which we're embedded, and the School of Medicine also has this. We've got a range of postdoctorate level innovation technologists. So these are the guys that are kind of on the ground liaising with the companies, scoping the projects, and then right way through to delivering and writing up the report at the end. That's what we're there for. So I'd like to emphasize here that it is a vast array really of skills and expertise and backgrounds. I'll touch on that in another slide. But at least some of the guys in our team sit between colleges too. So that puts us pretty well positioned to be kind of leveraging our networks then to make sure that we can best fit the solution. So in terms of, if we can offer it, that we do offer a wide range of skills, that obviously our academic networks then we can leverage. And those networks, we can find them in academia, in industry, and in health and social care. And obviously as a research institute, and Gwyn also touched on this briefly, is that we're open and receptive then to co-developing grant and funding applications with collaborators. Next slide, please. So what have we got? I think this is the real beating heart of Accelerate. It's the actual persons working for the research institutes and each group. It's that diverse portfolio effectively of skills we bring all the way through to identification of novel receptors for therapeutics, through to using AI technology then for identifying symptoms in respiratory diseases, for example. And moreover then, perhaps further down the line in the process of developing a product, whatever it might look like in the life science sector, we've got individuals who have expertise in innovation management. So they can see how this device or whatever it might be would be best fit into the real world, if you like, essentially. Next slide, please. So I hope that paints a little bit of a picture as to the kind of diversity of skills that we have, first of all, but that's what allows us then to engage with a range of different themes and different aspects of projects. Next slide, please. And one of them is engagement with a company called Hydro Industries. So Hydro, a local company, they're probably 15 miles down the road from us, from our base. And what they do is they design and manufacture innovative water purification technologies. And due to the modular setup of their units, they find a myriad of applications, everything through humanitarian applications, so providing clean drinking water, through to stemming some disasters, perhaps an oil spill or whatever. And each of those kind of areas that are outlined here on this slide, they've had some involvement with. Next slide, please. And obviously, as you can imagine, since they're pretty impactful in what they do, in terms of the work that they do, they offer a lot of benefit both socially and economically here in Wales and across the globe. Then they're spreading their footprint. So they've been picked up in the press pretty recently, and they're a very rapidly developing company. We're very excited to be on board with them. Next slide, please. So what would they want from us? Why would they come to Accelerate? They seem to have everything nailed. They're doing really well. Well, the bottleneck that these guys had is they had a limited capacity to undertake new R&D. So this is an example of how we are leveraging kind of wet lab laboratory skills, and also right at the other end of the spectrum then, taking a look at data science and AI. So the two aspects we're helping these guys with is development of a standard operating procedure for the end users of their products. Should there be any contaminant in the water, any nasties, they'll know how to deal with it. And what we're also doing is we're testing an already commercially available biosensor, so that it gives the persons at the tail end, who are using the water perhaps in a refugee camp, the peace of mind that the water they're putting in themselves is free of the nasties, at least to the standards of the World Health Organization guidelines. And the second aspect then is digital technology, making sure that the machinery is well maintained, and that we can use machine learning algorithms effectively to predict when it may be failing, so that they haven't constantly got the need to have engineers deployed, perhaps in places like Pakistan and Mogadishu, where you wouldn't want to be away from your family in some respects for more than some areas. So they're able to deploy their assets then more effectively to deal with the problem if it exists. So that's Hydro. If I get the next slide, please. So that was a local company, but we understand in most developing countries there's a problem. There's an increased spend in healthcare services, health and care services, but that doesn't necessarily always correlate with an increased benefit perceived by the end user. So another aspect of our work is we're working with a very large biopharmaceutical company to develop new models for collaboration between healthcare and life science sectors. But why are we doing this? We're doing this because these government documents are outlining that there's a possibility, as an option, or at least an avenue we should perceive, is to try and align the NHS with certain elements of the life sciences sector to really streamline the transfer of innovation and medicines between them. Effectively, that goes both ways. So we're hoping to understand, create and iterate a new model effectively for how the NHS can collaborate with medical technology centres and biopharmaceutical pharmacy in general. So we aim to be doing that through capturing patient outcomes and costs associated with that, and really always having the patient at the focus of what we're doing. Next slide, please. And in terms of what we've done to date, this is it. We've created a conceptual model, if you like, and we're testing it. So we've trawled what has and hasn't worked in the literature that's been published in peer-reviewed journals, and we've uncovered these guiding conditions, these foundations that need to be in place in order for these two entities to work more effectively together. So we're constantly iterating and developing that. We've interviewed probably the best part of 50 senior level executives in private sector, in pharma and medtech, and we've also spoken to a range of stakeholders inside the NHS to get their take on it. So the output for this would essentially be to inform, how can these guys and these organisations work better together. And obviously, as a research institute, quite selfishly, we hope then to be able to develop highly impactful research outputs. Next slide, please. And the work on this we've been doing probably since, I think it says here, May 2019. So we've been on a tour effectively with a seconded person from this pharmaceutical company, and we've been visiting conferences. We've been in the media with other elements of our team. We've applied for funding. We've had funding to help secure and drive that. So you can see it's growing, it's developing as we go forward, which I like to see. And yesterday, actually, we've got the stamp of approval that our research paper, it's the first of many on this study, has been published, which is fantastic news. But the two most interesting thing about collaboration like this is, number one, we get to work closely with industry, very close with industry. But we also get to develop industry reports. I don't know why, but I found that probably the most interesting thing. And secondly, then, the other thing I found amazing is the vast array of persons you get to meet. You get to sit down for the best part of an hour with the managing directors, the medical directors, and a whole level of different kind of stakeholders inside different organizations to get their take on research. And yes, it informs the research, and it's important, of course. We're hoping those are the guys at the tail end that be implementing this and adopting it, but it also grows our network, and that's also very important. Next slide, please. There we go. So that's a bit of an overview. I hope you can see from that although we pretty much set up and we do have expertise, tremendous expertise in the medical school in terms of the in vitro wet laboratory experiments, that the breadth of our expertise and what we can carry out goes a little bit beyond that too. So we're also always trying to learn new skills and deploy them to help ourselves, society and the economy. So next slide, please. If I could hand over to Chelsea now to tell us a little bit about the company and the product, and then I'll dip in as and when then, so that we can tell how we work together.
Hello there, I'm Chelsea Davis. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager for CPR Global Technology. We specialise in developing technology for everyday solutions. So, for example, we look for problems within the healthcare industry, within daily activities, and we provide technology, solutions through technology, as we believe that technology is now the new name in care, or it should be and it will be. Next slide, please. Okay, so the CPR Guardian is a GPS wearable smartwatch. It has two-way calling, so it can be used as a mobile phone. It also has an emergency assist button, and of course the GPS tracking on it, where you can set geozones as well. So for example, if an area was breached, you would receive a notification of that. We also have the heart rate monitor on the CPR Guardian as well, and it will notify you of the wearer's heart rate. And we are using a chameleon SIM as well, so it bounces to the best network, as obviously in Wales and the UK, some areas are stronger than the others. Now, we find this is the perfect device for someone who does have dementia, because it's so smart and sleek. There's no stigma behind it, and a lot of people do really enjoy wearing it. Now, we find it's best for the early stages of the dementia, as if they get into any trouble whatsoever, they press the SOS, the GPS location goes straight through to the carer's smartphone, and they can instantly be located. Now, there was a case study we've done, and it just happened, it was a private pay customer, and her husband often goes missing. Now, she often then has to call the police, which results in a lot of time being spent on it. And there was one particular, well, there's been multiple of times, but there was one particular time where the BBC was actually filming this, and she showed them the app and just pressed the locate, and it seemed that the guy had actually driven for the first time in around about 4 years to the next town. Luckily, they were able to locate him, and the police were just blown away by this. Next slide, please. Okay, so the cost of dementia healthcare is growing increasingly and rapidly. So we teamed up with Accelerate because we wanted to get some academic research behind our practical solutions. So what we done is we looked at ways that wandering off actually will cost a lot of money. Now, it's around about 6 in 10 people who have dementia will wander at some point in their lifetime. So we looked at wandering off, and we then seen that wandering off. They then go missing. It's likely that, you know, they could get very, very hurt, injured. They could really cause injury to other people. Like, for example, when I referred to the other case study, the guy had actually driven his car. Now, his injury, and well, luckily there was no injuries at that point, but it could have easily been an injury for him and towards someone else. Now, we find that people with dementia are likely to something like a 70% delay in discharge from the hospital due to the fact they have dementia. Now, obviously, this is costing the hospital and the NHS so much money because they're delaying the stay. They have to be there much longer, and therefore it's the overall cost of the healthcare in the dementia care. So what we thought was we would design a practical solution that someone from the NHS is able to monitor, and they know that when they actually send that wearer home, they know that they're confident that if anything, if they were to go missing, we could instantly locate them. And if
You have
they
2 minutes, Chelsea.
Okay, if they were to get in any trouble whatsoever, then they press the SOS button and they're instantly found. Thank you very much, and I'll hand it back over to Stan.
Next slide, please. Thanks, Chelsea. There we are. So this is I'll speed up a little bit, but this is the summary effectively of what we've done together. So this is laying the foundations, and we had a very tight timeline to do this. So it was about the best part of 2 months, if that, to turn everything around. So what we did we took a look at the landscape of dementia care in the UK, so the effects, the costs, like Chelsea's rightly pointed out. We then looked at existing technologies and measured up how the CPR Global Tech Watch compared, what was different, what was the same, what could be used as a unique selling point for the company itself. We also then looked at user verified content. So we know these people are using these devices because they're verified users. And what we did, there was tons and tons and tons of reviews of what they did and they didn't like. So what we could do from that then is identify the key features that were really working for people and other features that were perhaps not. And what we did then, we mapped all that stuff onto the different stages of dementia, from early through to mid through to late. Next stage, please. Next slide, Larry. There we are. So we incorporated that all into a report, but I'd like to emphasize this is just the start, the foundation of a relationship. Next slide, please. So in the future, what we're really going to do is we're going to leverage our networks to get the NHS involved, to get their opinion on the NHS, on the smartwatch and how it can be used in health and social care. We're going to be doing some financial modeling to see what the actual impact of having implemented Guardian into these systems will look like. Where hopefully there's potential to be working with the Bevan Academy then to have a Bevan exemplar to trial and test this in reality. And some of the guys I think that are involved in these discussions are on the call. I see Stephen there. We're looking also at getting either a master's or a PhD student on board then to really enhance the next iteration of product development and market analysis. And I think that's it then. So just further validation then of what we've already done and the intended impact on the intended market. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. And that first presentation just clearly illustrates the range and diversity of the Accelerate projects and just exactly how it's been used to advance those projects. So we're a bit tight for time, but I've got one question, and it's for Chelsea, and it was what process does CPR Global Technology use to identify opportunities for deployment of technology? Do you want to take that one, Chelsea?
Yeah, of course. So what we are doing at the moment is looking at people who are happy to give us feedback and will allow us to turn it into a case study. But mostly all of our customers are private paid, so it's more through our website or Amazon, but that's the way we're doing it at the moment, as in a B2C solution, so we can then take it to the likes of health and social care, the NHS, even the police.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Chelsea, and thanks for being brief with that answer. So if you'd like to carry on talking to Chelsea or Dan, please do use the questions and answers in the chat. We'll try and post any questions that we find, so keep an eye on the chat room. I noticed Carl right at the start of the presentation has asked a question, I think to the room, about the importance of governance, interoperability and finance. And absolutely, my opinion on that is that those three things are absolutely vital, especially at the new innovation stage. And governance and interoperability when you're working with an organisation as big as the NHS is absolutely vital. So if there's any comments on that, then please do share them in the chat room. I'm now going to move down the road just a little bit to ATHIC, and I'm very happy to introduce Caroline Hageman and Tim Stokes, and they're going to run a case study on transforming ward experience with NHS staff at Cymru Morgannwg. So Caroline and Tim, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Gwyn. So if we can go to the next slide. So what we're talking to you about today is a case study that we've been working on for a while now, that we're really interested and excited by, and we're just going to talk you through what we've been doing and what we learned. So I'm Caroline, and Tim is presenting with me. We're both Innovation Fellows at ATHIC, and the project is transforming the e-whiteboards, which are used in wards within Cymru Morgannwg Health Board. So, next slide, please. So we just have a really quick introduction to ATHIC here. So our niche within Accelerate is that we work on user experience projects. So what we do is we observe or analyze how users experience or interact with healthcare products, services, and systems, and we use these insights to innovate and improve these products. So as a team, we're multidisciplinary. We're designers, engineers, scientists, artists, and architects. So we come from a wide range of backgrounds and each bring our own sort of spin on this research. Next slide, please. And Tim's going to take you through a little bit of an intro and a little more detailed of what we do.
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you may be familiar with this, so we'll just kind of go through it really quickly. If you want to find out more, we have loads of information on our website and on social media. So ATHIC is really, we're really, as Carrie said, user-focused, and we really put the user at the heart of what we do. So everything we collaborate on with companies, while we don't design anything, we employ a lot of design thinking, creative strategies, and help them research and develop. So we do this by UX interviews, focus groups, workshops. This helps us to understand how users interact with health products and services. And to help us do this, we have behavioral and emotional observation analysis. By that, I mean we have like a multi-camera setup in our lab, much to the thrill of all the staff that work there. It means we're recorded like Big Brother. not really, but so it helps us to record kind of situations and events between people and code their behavior. We do this with Noldis software, and we've been anointed, if you could call it that, or given the title of the first Noldis reference lab in Wales from Noldis, in Europe, sorry. So we're also able to read people's emotions. So you can see in some of the videos, but they're moving quite slowly, that there's like a mesh that appears on their face, so we can monitor people's emotional responses ever so slightly. There's one on screen now with a software called Face Reader. Supporting this, we've got psychophysiological measurements such as heart rate, galvanic skin responses, various types of eye tracking, whether that's mobile, wearing glasses, or looking at a screen, or in VR. So all these kind of hidden ways to kind of track user engagement with things. We've also got 3D scanning facilities. We can scan people, spaces. So for people, it's maybe to create more bespoke assistive health apparatus or products. For spaces, we can then kind of put them into VR and test them and simulate them. We do a lot of biomechanical capture and kinematic analysis. So this is kind of like the tracking software you see in a lot of visual effects in films, where they've got the kind of little points all over their body and it tracks kind of how they move. We do this with a new state-of-the-art markerless system, which is less intrusive, and it helps us understand how the body performs in relation to objects and things in the healthcare. area. So 3D modeling and visualization, so we can build spaces. You can see one just popped up on the screen there. So we can build spaces and see how people react to those spaces. We can track their physiological measurements and eye tracking in VR as well. And we also have a lot of 3D printing and additive manufacturing. So we have a range of different 3D printers, and all types of different materials can be printed, from ceramic to obviously plastics to carbon fiber. So this isn't for us to design things, but it helps us to prototype for companies so they can research and test different kind of aspects of their product before actually going into production. So it's there's a range of toys and a range of equipment, but I think with all of that said, I think it's important to go back to the beginning, which is we're really about kind of the user, and that is central to what we do and their needs. And I think at that point, I'll hand back to Carrie to talk about the whiteboards, because that's kind of essentially the simplicity of what that project's about.
Cool. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you, Tim. So now the fun part, now we get to talk about the project. I just want to give you a little context about ward whiteboards before we go into it. So basically, around the world, wards within hospitals have whiteboards. There's a very blurry image on the left-hand side, where basically they keep track of all the patients who are in the ward at the moment, and different things about them, whether they need a treatment or a test, who's taking care of them, do they have any conditions that need to be taken care of. And so this is used during handover and just to keep track of things. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see some images and almost like icons as well, which are a set of magnets which were used within the health board historically. They were stuck on the whiteboard to keep track of other things that needed to be done. So this sort of gives you, so you'll see how these threads follow through. In the next slide, please, which is a screenshot of the digital whiteboard that the ComTAF IT team has developed and is currently deployed in almost every ward within ComTAF Health Board. So it's really widespread. It's used by like thousands of staff probably at the moment. And it's been really, really successful. So let me just take you through it quickly. So in the middle is basically a map of the ward. So each of those little rectangles is a bed. Most of the beds in this screenshot are empty, but you can see there are 3 that are full. They have people's names on them. And underneath, there are a few little images. So those are the icons, quite similar to what you saw in the previous slide. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see a little column with all of the icon options, and you just drag the icon onto the bed. So this is used during handover. It's used to keep track of things. As things change, you can change the icons. And then on the right-hand side is a column which keeps track of patients coming into and out of the ward. And also on the bottom keeps track of who's on the nursing staff during that shift. So who's in charge of which patient. So this has been extremely successful. The map view, the ability to be so flexible, it's much easier than scribbling on a whiteboard can be hard to read. It's really transformed the way a lot of ward staff work already. But basically ComTAF came to Accelerate and said, we want to make this better. We want basically a study done to help us think about how can we improve this and what more can we be getting out of this. Next slide, please. So these were our 3 sort of goals within the project. The first is to understand how the whiteboard fits in with ward staff currently. So understand what ward staff do, what they need, how they use the whiteboard right now, and how maybe they could use it even better. Secondly, improvement. So how can we improve both the visual aspects, so the layout, the icons, different visualizations, and also what new features could we consider that would actually help? And thirdly, can we assess the impact of these changes and use some of the data that the whiteboard is generating behind the scenes to help improve hospital workflows? So next slide. So there were 3 partners. First of all, the fabulous IT and innovation teams in ComTAF Organic Health Board. who have been an absolute pleasure to work with, have gone above and beyond helping us get into hospitals, giving us all the resources we need. ATTIC, which is us, me and Tim, basically, we were focusing on those first two goals. So understanding what was going on in the hospital currently, how it's being used currently, and then thinking about from a visual and a sort of features perspective, how can we improve it? And then also our colleagues at HTC, who you just heard from, are also working with us on this project to do the impact assessment, that third goal. So we're mostly going to focus on what we've been doing, but at the end I'll talk a little bit about what HTC is going to be doing afterwards as well. Next slide, please. All right, let's start on the first goal, the understanding goal. So this started with shadowing days. So Tim and I spent 6 days in wards at Prince Charles Hospital, Royal Glamorgan Hospital, and Ysbyty Cwm Canon. We observed, we interviewed key staff. These are, everything from nurses, doctors, bed managers, physiotherapists, dozens of people we spoke to. And additionally, we made connections in the hospitals, sort of built enthusiasm for this new project that was improving something that everyone already used and liked. So it was a really amazing experience, and we learned a ton. We learned how complicated hospital flows are. If you can go to the next slide, we have a sort of slightly threatening picture of the flow of a patient through a hospital, and the yellow Post-its are staff, hospital staff, who interact with the patient or potentially interact with the patient as they flow through the hospital. And this understanding was really important for us to say, okay, how does the whiteboard fit with all of this? How can we improve the interaction between all these different players to ultimately improve ward staff's workflows and also improve patient outcomes? So that was sort of the understanding phase. And now I'm going to hand over to Tim to talk about what we did with this and how we transformed this into new features and new ideas.
Yeah, so thanks, Kerry. So I think it's worth mentioning, up in the corner, we've put a little scribble. We didn't want to put it at full screen because we didn't want you to see what we wrote. But I think basically that was myself and Carrie standing in front of a traditional whiteboard, with marker pens, and working out what we're going to ask the staff, how we're going to gauge their responses, how we're going to get the best out of our time with them when we're asking them questions. And I think it's just kind of ironic that the best way to do this was to stand in front of a whiteboard when we used to work together back in those halcyon pre-COVID days, memories. Anyway, so I think it's just crucial as we go on that the whiteboards are kind of like they're so essential for generating ideas together. And I think what the new digital whiteboard brings is, next slide please, is the advent for more possibilities. So as well as, so we learned how everyone works together in the hospital, but we also learned kind of how they communicate with each other as well. So when we were talking to people, we learned about who they communicate with, what patient information they need from other departments. And it was kind of really extensive, getting the patients through the journey of the hospital out to discharge. And there's so many other kind of separate departments, and each of them have their own kind of software systems, particularly like pharmacy, physiotherapy for logging patient information. Nothing quite talks to one another, which is kind of really interesting in 2020 that, with the Internet of Things and everything else, nothing quite communicates digitally yet. So the whiteboard, it's worth mentioning, has this kind of potential to do all of these things in the future. That's not what we're doing right now, but it's worth kind of bearing in mind that it's a really kind of amazing tool that has all of that possibility but built in. Right now, we learned that lines of communication are usually in person through handover sheets between nurses. They hand over information on paper to each other at the end of their shift, and they still use fax machines and sometimes email, but mostly phone. So the whiteboard could kind of mean grand things. So it's really important that we looked upon the kind of smaller details and the user experience of it to improve it, because it could have such benefits in the future. We plan to do like a workshop after we learned all this information to collaborate with the staff, actively kind of co-create elements of the whiteboard. And this wasn't And this was like also to bounce ideas off one another, to get a real feeling kind of organically what sort of changes they would make, what associations they make, particularly with the icons used, you know, in a medical profession, like what icons, what does this mean to them? But then COVID happened, and our workshops that were planned for April, we had a good kind of response for, had to be kind of cancelled, both with like the social distancing, but also with the pressures on the NHS staff. And we were really conscious of this. So we had to kind of rethink everything. And knowing that the kind of, like I said, in-person working together was crucial to how we were going to kind of engage with users and get their feedback. It was kind of like a big problem for us, but we managed through speaking to Tom Powell and understanding how staff may be able to still work with us. We thought that a simple interactive online survey would be good, something they could do on their breaks, something they could do after work. Next slide, please. So I say a simple online survey. This looks quite confusing. So this is another whiteboard. Again, it's like Inception here. This is a virtual whiteboard that we used in remote times to kind of work together. Me and Carrie kind of found it really difficult to kind of, where we'd usually be sitting or next to each other, to kind of like, oh no this, oh no that, you know, put this there. We found it really hard to kind of get that kind of same engagement between ourselves going. So this was kind of a really good way to do that. So we gave the survey a lot of thought. We tested a bunch of features and changes to the interface and functionality, but what we're going to concentrate on mainly is our focus on the icons and what they do and how they help the whiteboard. So they're still very much in development. I think it's worth saying at this point that nothing's been finalized. The survey is even still ongoing. This is all very interim. So to do the survey, we had to kind of prototype alternatives for the staff to pick, because they couldn't help us kind of generate them from scratch. So we worked with a design team at Waters, and we helped prototype alternative images for each icon. So so what the staff would prefer, basically, and then we could feed this information back to Waters. Next slide, please. So
about 2 minutes, Tim.
Okay, I'll run through this really quick, 1 minute. Okay, so so all the images originally, you can see confusion, barrier, falls, antibiotics. The first sort of row are the icons that are in place. And these icons are tiny in each patient box. They're about 32 pixels. They're really small, and they're kind of pixelated. They're not even sharp. So what we had to kind of convey was really restrained by that. And we tried to pick alternatives, thinking, you know, things that are more symbolic, that were picked by the IT team. We don't even know if they have any relevance. So they've just picked a shape, like falls as a triangle. We wanted to test these with users to see if they wanted something more representative or more illustrative. Next slide, please. So these are some screen grabs from our survey. So you can see what we tried to do is harness everything that existed on the whiteboard already, but then give different kind of options. So obviously for diabetes, different things are associated with diabetes. We wanted to check that the best one went forward, the most intuitive one for all staff and all new people who are adopting this whiteboard. Next slide, please. So it's kind of like, we wanted to kind of make it like a highway code, like a underground map, you know, so something that could be rolled out to other hospitals if need be. So that kind of quick adoption was necessary. Next slide, please. I think we can go on to the next slide for time. And these are multi-layers. I'll speak about them with the next slide. So at the moment, we've kind of got an idea of what's needed, and the responses we're getting are kind of like bold, colorful shapes, limited color if possible, black outlines around them to help with recognition. So we've really managed to kind of weed out through a lot of trial and error what would work best for staff. And we've even kind of incorporated from listening to them how multi-layers would help, much like the notifications on your phone. I think there's a lot of stuff I'm missing out. Next slide for time. And Waters now, we're passing all this user information that we've gained over to Waters, and they're starting to design a guide, which can be like a branding guidelines, which can be used then to create new icons. And they're translating all of that user data that we've kind of filtered for them into something that's workable and is essentially built by the NHS staff. Okay, Carrie?
Yeah. And I'd just like to note before we move on, in this case study, we focused a lot on the icon design, but we are also developing new features, new visualizations, new layouts for the whiteboard as well. They're still in a pretty early stage, but we're hoping to do something with, you know, a lot more functionality and is just a lot more useful for the staff. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are our three sort of key things that we learned. First, obviously, we're of course going to say this because we're user experience researchers, but when you're speaking to staff in such a complex system as an NHS hospital, you really have to speak to the users and hear from them, what do they actually need? We learned it, you know, there was a huge learning curve. We just had so much to learn. And I don't think without that time, you know, all the time we spent, we just wouldn't have been able to dive in the same way. Secondly, Tim has pretty much covered this, but surveys do work as a replacement for in-person interactions, but you can't just write it in an afternoon. You have to take a lot of time to make sure that it's actually answering your key questions and that it's actually going to give you something useful, because you can't go back for a redo. And thirdly, it's important to not just change things for the sake of it. NHS staff are so busy and they have so many systems they have to work with. And it's more respectful of them to give them something that fits in with the way that they currently work, and the way not to change things too much, but rather to build on top of current systems. Next slide, please. And then a few reflections on remote working. I think what we've lost.
We can
here
wrap up. That'd be good.
I think, are we running a few minutes ahead? Can we have just like one more minute?
No, I factored that in. Go on, finish off, 1 minute.
Okay. All right, I'll skip this one then. Let's go. So as mentioned, this is going to slowly be rolled out by the CUMTAF IT team. We're about to start putting things onto the boards now. And then, as mentioned, the final step is for HTC to analyze the impact of our research. Well, that's part of it. So obviously, the things that we add will probably change things. But additionally, the whiteboard is generating so much useful information that can be analyzed by hospitals or the health boards. But at the moment, it's not being used to help in any way. So what HTC is going to do as well, which is really exciting, is think about how they can use all this information to help, to analyze, to improve in a more behind-the-scenes way. So as I'm sure you can tell, we've really enjoyed this project. We're really grateful to our partners at HTC and CUMTAF. Thank you for your kind attention. If you want to talk further, we love to talk about it. So please get in touch. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Caroline and Tim. And yes, I know it's a real challenge to squeeze everything, all the great stuff you've been doing into the time. What you did do there was really clearly demonstrate how closely the Accelerate project and your centre is working with health and social care professionals in Wales, and that in itself can be a real asset, because so much early stage technology development is done without enough contact and connection with the end users, and you've obviously put that right at the top of your priority list. So thank you very much for that. There is a question just coming up in that I'm going to put in the chat room so that you can give it the time it deserves to answer that. And in the meantime, I'm going to hand over to Barbara Coles and Sharon Beattie. We're coming down the M4 now to Cardiff University, and the title of the presentation is Using State-of-the-Art Technology and an Electronic Patient Record System to Deliver Community-Based Ophthalmic Assessment and Management of Complex Eye Disease by Optometrists in Wales. So thank you, Babs and Sharon, both for the tongue twister and the prize for the longest title. And I shall hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Gwen, and good morning, everybody. I'm Barbara Coles. I'm Programme Manager for CIA, which is the Clinical Innovation Accelerator aspect of Accelerate. The information that I'm going to give you now is just a whirlwind tour of how CIA works before we go on to look at a couple of other projects previous to speaking to Sharon and letting Sharon talk to you about the ophthalmology project. There is a link on this slide here to our Cardiff Innovation brochure that tells you more about our team and how we work and other case studies. So if you would like to have a look at that following this, that will let you have some more information about how we work. Do you want to go to the next slide, please? So unlike ATIC and CIA, we don't have a facility or lab set up to enable projects, but what we do have is a team of experts that have got a huge breadth of experience and diverse research background. And we work as a team then to work with projects to provide a bespoke service, essentially, to support each of those projects in a different way. So we've got a team of innovation fellows, a business development manager, a health economic staff to look at how we can best scope, develop, enable and support each of these projects. The team is further supported by admin support, a finance officer and legal support. Next slide, please. So within CIA, we try to incorporate 3 elements into each project if possible. Essentially, for each project, we have to work with Cardiff University as that Cardiff University academic expertise, and also an enterprise to gain the indicators for the programme as a whole, this being Welsh economic development at the heart of it. But by working with the health board on many projects, we also bring in that element of health and patient benefit as well. So I guess really to enable each project, we look at how we can link each of these through collaborative RD&I projects. So CIA delivery models include clinical input with clinical support to enable NHS staff to dedicate time to RD&I projects through working relationships within the health boards. We've got access to patient cohorts, patient samples, care homes, pharmacy, optometry services, dentistry and GP clusters. Access to Cardiff Clinical Innovation Partnership enables us to make use of the MDT experts that we have, including devices, experts, regulatory compliance, industry and intellectual property experts, as well as NRIS advice on board as well. Through CIA, we've got access to the Accelerate health economic and data scientist staff to support and inform and enable assist projects. Access to a bank of multidisciplinary technologists in CBS, that's Central Biotechnology Services within Cardiff University, PETIC, the Biobank, Kubrick, and the Medicines Discovery Institute. There are cross-disciplinary links and relationships with the schools of engineering, bioscience, pharmacy, computer science, dentistry, and business and architecture also. Many of those schools we already have projects in delivery with. We've got a close and active research relationship with the Welsh Wound Innovation Centre, WIC, which is based in Talbot Green. And we've also got a wealth of established networks previously developed by SUOS, the South East Wales Academic Science Health Partnership, and the Clinical Innovation Partnership with Cardiff University and Cardiff and Vale Health Board. So we support all of the collaborative RD&I projects, with NHS staff, expertise, research assistants, technologists, student partnership placements, academic, health economic, consumable and equipment support. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go into depth with this project, and these case studies are available in our brochure and or on the Accelerate website. But I just wanted to give you an overview of a few different projects to demonstrate how we support projects essentially. So with this project here, we're looking at producing and validating a healthy tea with a Welsh company. So to do this, we're supporting an RA to optimise the polyphenol and salicylic content of the tea to enable the maximum benefits of the product to be established. There's literature research and reviews and market analysis going on in the background to inform the research in the laboratory by the research assistant. We're also looking at a clinical trial to validate this tea, and in the process of doing that, we're scoping, costing, and looking at the ethical considerations as part of the planning of that process. This will then enable us to understand the science and the application of the product as well, for better health benefits. So the outcomes encompass not only Welsh economic development, but also the health and well-being considerations as well, with expected outcomes being a tea that with evidence supporting health benefits, a new product to market, a launch of a ready strategic marketing and promotional strategy founded on the principles of environmental wellness, a strong science base, and an attractive ethos supporting the honeybees, or the farm bees as they're better known, within Cardiff University. We're looking at a new company branding, as well as contribution to the evidence base behind the dietary phenol and salicylate levels within this tea. We're looking at the science behind that and how that can then further reduce drug interaction and drug taking that's prescribed on the wards. We also expect this project to lead on to the further development of other collaborative work between industry and academia, as well as peer-reviewed publications and clinical innovation case studies. Next slide, please. So this project is one of our shortest projects that we've got in Cardiff University. We seem to have a lot of projects that run at 12 and 18 months and up to 2 years, as with the optometry project that's coming next. With this project, we're working with Welsh company Broadwaith Cyf, Cardiff University researcher, and we're also looking and supporting the professional expertise available within the specialist ICU departments in Cardiff and Vale Health Board to research and develop the prototype that the company have. So we're looking at setting up focus groups as part of this to evaluate the feedback from patients, staff and family alike. And we were looking at how the use of this prototype vest can improve the mobilisation and the well-being and health of the patient going forward. We would hope that this product then would then go on to provide an evidence-based change of practice within ICU units for ventilated patients. The outcomes of this study will be a new project or modification of the prototype, potential changes in clinical practices within ICU, improved procedures for patient mobilisation resulting in increased patient comfort and confidence, upskilling the staff in the new use of the new tool, preliminary data to seed future work, and also peer-reviewed publications. So in addition to this, project, we've also got a number of other projects which are listed in our brochure and website. But additionally, which is quite important at this moment in time, is our support as well through CIA of a Cat3 facility in Cardiff University. We're providing support for that with 2 research assistants, and we're also looking now immediately at supporting 4 projects that will help COVID questions and answers that are coming through. So I'm going to hand you over now to Sharon, who's going to talk to you about the optometry project, which is really one of our flagship projects for CIA. And I'm just going to let Sharon take over from here. Thank you.
Al, she said she was muted. And she wanted you to unmute her in the chat.
There we go. Can you speak now, Sharon?
Hi everybody, can you hear me? Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Sharon Beattie. I'm the optometry advisor to Cardiff and Vale Health Board, and I was very fortunate to meet Barbara over a year ago now, and we got talking about what Accelerate could do for us. So essentially, next slide please. As part of my role, it's to advise the health board of new ways of working. We're all well aware of delays in hospital care, and this was even pre-COVID. So we're looking at how we can use our workforce in optometry practices, and we've got 800 optometrists across Wales who've got the skills and the equipment to see our patients from hospital close on the high street and closer to home, according to the prudent healthcare principle. So you can see we've got over 9,000 patients that we have already started new pathways for ocular diseases, and we started the first pathway back in March for emergency eye care, eye casualty. And this has all been made possible by a new electronic patient record that's based in ophthalmology, and we've been using in Cardiff and Vale. So the issue in the past has always been, how do we get patient information safely and securely from the optometry practice into ophthalmology? So this will allow this shared care record. Practices will be able to share information securely. So this year we'll be seeing over 9,000 patients. Next slide, please. So how did it work? It's a very simple concept. The optometrists perform all the tests. We have the same equipment as the hospital. We upload all this information to an electronic patient record. Every optometry practice has access in Cardiff and Vale shortly to this record, and then the consultant can view all our results and decide whether the patient has to come to hospital or whether they can carry on being monitored in primary care. Next slide, please. So obviously we have these unsustainable pressures on ophthalmology, which has been exacerbated through COVID, and we're very pleased that we started this project before COVID, because once you've lost your sight loss from a delayed appointment, you'll never get that sight loss back. So we're starting it in these 9 practices, and again, when we joined with Accelerate, really our key questions are, what does the patient think of the service? What does the practitioner think of the service? What does the hospital think of the service? Is it good value for money? And is it sustainable? Are we creating that capacity that we hope we can create by providing this service local to home? So if it goes well, our plan is to roll it out across Cardiff and Vale. The Health Minister has signed the business case for rollout of this Open Eyes electronic patient record across Wales for every optometry practice in Wales and every ophthalmology department in Wales, and that was last month. So the potential there, if this is successful, to roll it out quite quickly. How do we evaluate whether it's going to work or be successful? Next slide, please. Well, Accelerate put us in touch with Cardiff University, who are providing the research. They've done a brand new patient experience measure satisfaction survey, which will be rash analysed and published. And they've also, we're getting advice from their expert health economist, who's telling us what we need to look at, what information we need to be able to evaluate the service. We'll have interviews with the patients and with the practitioners. We're liaising with hospital consultants, we have IT consultants, so we've got weekly meetings with all our partners. We liaise with Optometry Wales, who asked all the practices to sign up to this research because this is extra time for them in practices doing all this for us. So it's been a very busy few months since March, when we started seeing our first patients in practice. We have administrative support, so all our information can be evaluated and passed on to our researchers, and of course our patient representatives organising all those to give us feedback as well. Next slide, please. So essentially, what do we need? We need a service evaluation for these 5 new pathways, the training for optometrists and support staff, again, our satisfaction surveys and patient interviews, Again, what happens to our patient outcomes? Are they kept in hospital? Do they have to go to hospital? Can we keep them in practice? So we'll be doing intricate evaluation of that. Capacity exercises and sustainability. So I can take it back to the health board to say, look, this is the evidence. We've tried pathways like this in the past, but we've never properly evaluated it, and we've never had the digital technology to do this properly that we have now. We'll have research publications, and we already have one that's being drafted at the moment, showing the success of the first pathway. And again, with recommendations, we've already gone to Welsh Government to say this is what we're doing, and for support in the future, because an optometry contract is coming in the next couple of years. Could these pathways be built into an optometry contract across Wales? Other health boards have already, we've given advice to other health boards on how to start and establish these pilot pathways. They'll be having access to the digital technology over the next few months. So Accelerate, really, we've already started to transform the pathways and expand the pathways before we've even had all the results, because the initial results that Accelerate have given us have been so promising. So it's something we can definitely see a future for. Next slide, please. And again, what do we want at the end of the project for the patient? Well, patient safety, satisfaction, that they're seeing in a timely manner, that the patients are happy, that we are delivering the Healthier Wales strategy of patients being seen closer to home. Again, I looked at
Sharon.
Thank you. I looked at the first 60 patients that were seen in our glaucoma pathway, and normally all those 60 patients would have been sent to hospital. The first 60 patients, only 5 needed surgery or laser treatment in hospital. The other 55 patients could be safely seen in the practices in 3 months' time, or 6 months' time, or 12 months' time. So the consultants are very much on board and are seeing the promise of this. And during COVID, well, goodness me, we would have been really struggling to see our patients with our 50% capacity that we have now going forward. Again, we want to see that IT enables true shared care. We've been refining, going back to the developers and refining the IT side of it, because this is new technology for everybody. And again, economic benefits. Again, can we reduce our need for outsourcing by seeing our patients out in primary care? So again, Accelerate, I've already started writing the reports. We're looking at how we refine the pathways if we go across Wales. And again, how quickly can we roll this out across Wales? We think if we have the evidence and it's positive, and we believe we can do this very quickly. We've also already started looking at another 2 new pathways that we could add to be seen as part of this pilot. So yes, very positive so far, and we are very grateful for Accelerate. They've pulled all the different stakeholders together and given us that expert advice where I just wouldn't have known where to start. So thank you very much, Barbara.
Not a bad place to finish, Babs. So if I can well, say thank you very much, Sharon and Babs, for that. And yes, what an excellent combination of clinical and academic expertise, and then the program layered on top of that to provide the referrals and the connections there that have created another success story. So thank you very much for running through that with us, and for sticking to time as well. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to move slight different tack now, because I'm going to introduce Sheridan Methuen and Chris Rolls from the Life Sciences Hub Wales, who are Accelerate partners, but as Sherry will explain, not in a research partner capacity, but in providing other support and connections across the whole program. So Sherry, if I can hand over to you.
Thank you, Gwyn. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd probably like to put a little message out to say that unfortunately this isn't my house you're seeing me sitting in, but maybe it's an indication of my aspirations, maybe. As Gwyn said, and thank you for the introduction, Gwyn, I'm Sheridan Methuen. I'm Head of Innovation Adoption at the Life Sciences Hub Wales. And part of my role is as Programme Manager of the Accelerate programme. I hope that the previous presentations have given you a flavour of the breadth of expertise and support that there is available in Wales. And indeed, I'm having come from a clinical and latterly an industry background before I joined the Hub. When I came to the Hub, I was just, to be perfectly honest, blown away by the support, the capability, the capacity that these programmes offer, both for healthcare and for industry. I'm really impressed. Plus, I'm an English girl, and I haven't actually seen anything quite like this in my professional travels across England. Gwyn's given you a clear introduction to the Accelerate programme and the challenges and how and what it's designed to address. But I'd like to give you a brief introduction to the Hub and our role within the Accelerate programme. Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you. The Life Sciences Hub is an arm's length body of the Welsh Government, and its purpose is to drive transformational, systematic change in the health and social care sector. And it's designed to create a better future for the people of Wales. Our role is to inspire innovation and collaboration between industry, health and social care and research organisations to really make a difference, a positive difference to the people and families across our nation. We have a head office in Cardiff Bay, which is pictured on the slides in front of you, and an office in Swansea. And I'm privileged, and we are fortunate to work with around 50 dedicated professionals who have been carefully chosen for their experience and expertise in a number of fields. Just an interesting fact with the picture on the left, and as a reasonable newbie to the Hub, I only found this out yesterday from Gwyn, having spent some time in the Hub and not noticed. But you'll see on the left-hand picture, there's a tiled pathway on the floor, and that pathway runs from the lectern to the reception, through to the office and to the boardrooms. And it's to create a graphical representation of the heartbeat rhythm of the Hub. Well, I just thought that was quite a nice fact. I only just learned it. Next slide, please. Thank you. The Hub's mission is to accelerate the development and adoption of innovative solutions for better health and well-being. And our vision is to make Wales the place of choice for healthcare and well-being and innovation. Our catalyst for change is that we work with NHS Wales to understand the issues and identify how innovation can help deliver better care. We support businesses to create health and social care solutions, and we work in collaboration with those organisations to create projects that deliver the solutions and embed the transformational change that's required. We work with our programme partners that you've heard some great presentations from today to develop project proposals to deliver innovative solutions to health and care challenges. We create connections which enable people and organisations to work in partnership, and we build these partnerships by convening and orchestrating and bringing together stakeholders to drive forward national programmes and innovation. Our activities, however, are prioritised and focused on the health and wellbeing agenda and to drive economic growth across Wales. Thank you. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. As Gwyn described, Accelerate is one of our national programmes. You heard from our partners how they work to build partnerships across healthcare and industry, and our role in Accelerate is to support an engagement strategy and to promote the programme through proactive engagement, working closely with industry, developing relationships, developing partnerships, understanding what they have to offer, so that we can generate and drive a healthy, full and rich pipeline of activity that we can then pass on to our academic experts. We scope and explore the opportunities and new ideas and project proposals to determine the eligibility for the programme. That eligibility is through the following criteria. It needs to be a Welsh enterprise or needs to contribute to the Welsh economy. It must meet a need of a healthcare challenge or an unmet clinical need. And it also needs to be in true collaboration. This needs to be a partnership where different people bring different experiences, different experts, and everybody works together so everybody is able to benefit. If the project fits the criteria, then we refer the opportunity to our programme partners who you've heard from today. Or we can signpost to many other resources that are available to industry, such as Medi Wales, which I think you'll hear a little bit more about later, to Business Wales, to Investment Bank Wales. Next slide, please. I mentioned about some of the people that work in our team, and we have a team of experts who have a breadth of experience across a number of relevant sectors. We understand the industry landscape, the challenges and the routes to market that industry faces, and also the breadth of business support that is available out there in the community. One of my colleagues, Chris, who's going to speak next, will go into more detail about the activities that the team are involved in. And he'll talk about some of the studies that we can undertake, such as feasibility studies to see if a product or service is right for the market. But our role is to make sure that every opportunity is given the right support to ensure success for the organisations we work with, but ultimately that it benefits the health and economy of Wales. Chris, I'd like to pass on to you, please.
Thank you, Sherry. Yes, my name is Chris Rolls, and I'm a Business Engagement Manager on the Accelerate programme. And it's my role to engage with potential projects and to guide them through the journey, if you like, hold their hand through the entire journey from start to finish with Accelerate. Could I have the next slide, please? So these are some of the key stages of the programme, and what I'd like to do today is talk you through how these key stages happen in practice rather than in theory. So as you can see, a key part of the success of the programme is our ability to reach out to businesses and potential projects, and we do that in a number of ways. So we hold various activities to engage projects throughout the year, and as you can see on the slide, this includes social media activity and web-based communications, as well as our own programme of events and conferences. We also hold a number of events throughout the year in collaboration with other programmes, so this can include Business Wales, or the Digital Health Ecosystem Wales, or Agor IP, who I understand you'll be hearing from next. One of the key early stages in our involvement is to triage potential projects, to understand them and to get to know them better. It's important for us to understand how the programme fits with their individual needs, but also to identify how we can support both through the programme, but also through our external partners. So how we do this is we'll arrange an initial meeting to explain the programme in more detail and get to know your individual project needs and start to get a feeling for how we may be able to support you. At this stage, and Sherry's just touched upon it, but at this stage we tend to look at the eligibility criteria for the programme and start to offer solutions to any perceived barriers. So one of the projects that I dealt with recently was proposed by a clinician within the NHS. And because one of the eligibility criteria is to be a Welsh enterprise, unfortunately the NHS Trust did not meet that criteria. So what we did was we started to explore possible collaboration with existing Welsh businesses, or even the possibility of the formation of a new enterprise. And through ongoing discussion, we decided that the best vehicle would probably be a community interest company. And what we did was we helped that trust set up a community interest company in order to meet that eligibility criteria. We can also draw upon several networks and help the enterprise establish relationships with external support providers. So, for instance, with our partnership with Business Wales, we've helped facilitate introductions around business planning and arranging finance. And the next stage of the process is to ensure that any intellectual property that you hold is protected. And the way that we do that is by completing a programme-wide non-disclosure agreement. This then allows me to elaborate your project idea to our university partners that you've already heard from, and allows me to set up a scoping meeting. So during this scoping phase of the project, it'll allow us to better understand the parameters and enable us to set expectations. At this stage, we'll put together a delivery plan, and that will outline the type of input that's required by you as an enterprise. So as you can see in the slide, that could include sort of people time or resource time, but it could also include match funding. And as Sherry has said, one of the key eligibility criteria for the programme is that it's a true collaboration. So in effect, the work that's put in by us and our university partners needs to be matched by yourself, usually by the resources that you've already put towards the project, but it could also be further time and further input in developing and adapting the project. At this stage, we'll also identify any suitable external collaborations, and this could also be collaboration with existing businesses in Wales. So across the programme, as you've already heard, we've got access to academic expertise, both within the Life Sciences Hub and also within the university partners. We've got access to clinical expertise through the Health and Social Care engagement team at the Hub and our collective programme-wide networks. We have extensive market expertise at the Hub, and within our innovation and engagement team, we've got several impact area leads across health and social care, and these include advanced therapies, digital and AI, and precision medicine, amongst others. And we've also got access to health professionals, patient groups, and academics in order to test or further develop your ideas. As you've heard this morning, there's a broad spectrum of support through the Hub and the university partners, but we're also able to support at the Hub in a number of other ways, and Sherry's already touched upon our ability to undertake market feasibility. So I'll talk you a bit through some of the specific elements of that. So we recently supported a project that had not previously been involved in the life sciences sector. And they were considering repurposing their existing equipment and expertise for potential health-related applications. So what we did to support that was we helped support their business case by providing intelligence on their potential chosen marketplace. And we did this by looking at the advantages and disadvantages of entering that market. The market characteristics including things like market size, business type, demography, and user attitudes. We looked at the current state of the art of that market and its current competitors, and also potential barriers to market entry. We looked at their potential business models, as well as any regulatory requirements that they would have to meet in order to enter that market. And we also assessed the current commercial opportunity, including things like market size and potential segmentation. So, as you've already heard, we're able to build and maintain relationships with health, academia, and external agencies through our extensive knowledge and partnership network. As you can see on the last column, there's a number of outcomes that we would hope to achieve through the project, and they include things like non-financial support. So that's the support hours that we'll actually put into the project. But it could also be things like the creation of jobs, patents, new products to both your enterprise or to the marketplace, and cooperation with research institutions. So I'd just like to finish by saying, if you have a potential project, or if you would like to know more, then we'd love to hear from you, and please do get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris and Sherry. And so yes, just to pick up on the key point there, anybody thinking of contacting Accelerate, please feel free to contact any of the partners. everybody understands the program as a whole and can introduce you to other partners as required. But if you want to understand a little bit more about feasibility, project scoping, eligibility, or a wider view of the program, then please do contact Chris and Sherry and the team to access the program through that route. So thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, Sherry.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, Gwyn.
Go on, Sherry.
I'm
sorry.
really sorry. We have actually got a particular call to action, which is why the accelerator email address is up there for us. So you've seen some of the examples of some outstanding projects that have already been demonstrated today, and that's just a smattering of many projects that are underway at the moment. And you can see what the collaboration can do. But what we want to call out to you and say, if you've got an idea or a product or a service that you think Accelerate can take forward, we'd like you to link up with us. There'll be an email link in the chat room, or you can drop us an email, or you can call us the number, and we will have a portal challenge ready for you to submit to. So if you think you have any projects, ideas, or you just want to have a conversation, then please just give us a call.
So Alan has just put into the chat the link for our portal. And the portal is just a simple way of you entering your information and your requirements onto our system in a way that can be collated and shared with the partners. So so just, yeah, please do have a look at that and just follow the link, or contact one of the team. Either is absolutely fine.
Thanks, Gwyn. Sorry to interrupt, but there are two portal inquiries that you can log into. So we've registered one as a COVID-19 related piece of work, and then there's one just as a standard piece of work. So when you go onto the portal, you'll see the two ideas. So if there is an idea or a solution that's related directly to the work that has undergone regarding COVID, then follow that link. If not, then follow the other link. And I will shut up. Sorry, Gwyn.
Great, thank you very much. All important stuff. So there's a COVID challenge and there's a more general challenge, and if you follow the link, then you'll be taken to those two challenges. Thank you very much, Sherry. Are we done? We're done. Okay, so now I'd like to, I think a couple of the partners, as part of their presentations, mentioned that we work closely with other programs who have complementary services to offer, so that we're all working in a joined up Team Wales fashion. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Kyam Gilks Murray from Agor IP to introduce a program that is close to our hearts and works in partnership with us. So Kyam, if you'd like to continue.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. So yes, I am Kyam Gilks Murray, and I am a technology transfer manager working on the Agor IP project, which is based in the School of Management at Swansea University. Slide, please. And again. Oh, yes, if you could just click through the animations. I think there's two on this slide. Thank you. So Agor IP is a unique open innovation project that's led by Swansea University, and that has as its principal objectives to firstly bridge the gap between innovation and the marketplace, and secondly to improve the health, well-being and economic drive of the people of Wales by creating businesses and jobs, for example. Often we see that there's a major funding gap between individuals creating products or having innovative ideas and actually translating that into a viable product that can be marketed and sold. And this is particularly difficult if you don't actually have the expertise in-house to facilitate the type of idea that you're trying to create. So, of course, there's multiple ways in which a product or a business can get their idea to market, like starting a company in order to obtain investment, and so driving the product push yourself, or filing IP to secure a license deal, and so passing off the responsibility and in taking that idea to market to somebody else. But then here is the difficulty. Once you have that innovation or that idea, How do you translate it into an investable proposition for a VC or an angel? Or how do you file that IP or proper encapsulate the idea so that it becomes a licensable proposition? So this is where AgriIP can help individuals, academics, businesses, individuals, and the NHS to help them realise the potential of their inventions. And we do this thanks to funding from the EU, Welsh Government, and Swansea University. Slide, please. So as mentioned earlier, we seek to improve the health, well-being and economic drive of the Welsh economy. And we do this by creating networks between different groups of people whilst working on a particular invention or a product. So we may have an individual who comes to us that has just had a light bulb moment in bed, let's just say, and then, but they don't actually have the expertise to be able to facilitate that into a product. So it may be appropriate for us to partner them with a research group in the university who have those expertise. Or alternatively, a business may come to us with a particular commercial hurdle that they're wanting to get over. They're looking for funding and they need potentially a mentor or an investor to come on board who can help with that side of things, not only funding wise, but also business acumen in order to perhaps help them scale or create a business plan or something to that sort of, to that like. So linking academics, industry, the NHS, entrepreneurs and investors help us to meet those objectives of improving the health and well-being and economy of Wales. Slide, please. So we take an open IP approach to everything that we work on. We're not limited to working on engineering-based products or healthcare technologies. It could be absolutely anything, which is why we say open IP. And these range from, the style of project, we use the TRL levels as our base. It's 1 to 9, 1 being idea and 9 being commercial readiness. So you could hit along this scale at any point. Ideally, we take it from point 3, which is proof of concept. So there's a little bit more that's gone into developing that idea rather than just having a basic concept. And we can take this on to follow-on funding, investment readiness, seed finance, through those different levels so that we can help scale the business proposition. There are a few criteria that we need to hit in order for a project to become part of AgriIP. And firstly, this is novelty. So this really links in with our IP objective. We want to be working on projects that are brand new, an idea that has industrial application in the marketplace. Perhaps it's an emerging market and this technology could be disrupted. Those are the sorts of projects that we're looking to work on. Secondly, we have to be able to add value and get something for this value. So we're not a grant awarding body, and anything that we do put into the project, there has to be an intention to repay that once the project is successful. Now we realise that there's a risk that not all projects will be successful. They won't all end up in products being sold on the market. They won't all be licensable propositions because we may just not get there. That's the nature of the business that we're in. But this allows us to be state aid compliant. We currently work on a no aid basis. So that means any investment that we do put into a project, there has to be the intention for it to come back to us once they are successful. And lastly, we must assist projects based in West Wales and the Valleys. We're currently going for an extension, which means hopefully this will be a pan-Wales project and we'll be able to assist East Wales inventions and ideas, but at the minute this is limited to West Wales and the Valleys. Next slide, please. I think there's one, yes. So these are some of the spin-outs that we've helped to create from university-based projects. So these are academics that created something in their research group and it's been translated either into a business. Well, actually, these have been translated into a business. So these are spin-out companies. Procool on the right there is our latest and greatest example of success. Next slide, please. So we had an early career researcher come to us with his research, and he wanted to be able to translate that into a product. He wanted a business set up, and he wanted to sell that product. So we had his start point. We had his research, his process, his data. And then we had where he wanted to go, which was setting up a business, and it was selling a product. So how did we get him there? First of all, with most projects, we're going to take them through market research and prior art research to find out the competitive landscape and whether this is in fact a new idea. Again, this links with the IP element. We're looking for new novel ideas which could then translate into a registrable intellectual property rights. So upon successful conclusion of the market research and the prior art research, we then filed a patent for Procore, encapsulating all of that research and all of that data. And the type of project I'm talking about here is the product was a new type of collagen, which had multiple uses in different areas. So we then helped him to set up a business, which was a spin out. We found him a commercial mentor, who advises him on the direction of that business, the market strategy, how he could scale, how he was going to manufacture, and so on. And this particular mentor actually fell in love with this project, luckily for Procore, so much so that he wanted to be more a part of the business, and he didn't want to be paid as a consultant style mentor. He wanted to actually have an interest in the company itself. So they found a very value added resource that is now part of the business. So organically growing the team also becomes part of this sort of process. We then help Procore to find office space, and we help them to engage with potential customers who were distributors in the field of collagen. And this became such an attractive package, a brilliant business package actually, that it became an investable proposition. So we put Procore in front of the appropriate people, and eventually they garnered a very good investment deal, which is why this is a success for us, taking it all the way from idea to investment. And this investment covers now the salaries of the team, product development on the second and third product, so the scalability, further R&D, and new machinery in order for the manufacture of the original product. So these are the sorts of things that Agora IP can help a particular project, business, individual on. It's market research, it's commercial mentors, it's IP filing, investments, finding and negotiating license deals, prototyping, and also creating demos and storyboards of your particular idea. Because although Procore represents a project where we could help them in multiple areas, it may not be appropriate for every project to take them through that steps. It may be that we actually have to just do a demo and put them in front of investors, or licensees, and then they will take it to market. Getting industry partners in early is actually really important when it comes to commercializing something, because at the end of the day, you want it to be suited to the market needs. So those who are best placed are those in the market currently using and selling ideas and products themselves. So, I mean, that is my presentation. And if this has resonated with anyone here today, there's anyone who thinks that Agora IP would be able to help them in an idea, please get in touch with us. If you could go on to the next slide, please. So our information should be here. We have the website, which you can go through. I can also put my email address in the chat, so you can contact me directly. I would say don't call that number because it's the office number, and obviously we're all working from home at the minute. But yeah, I'll put my email in the chat. And also I realized that I've probably spoke quite a lot with things that aren't on the slide, so I'm happy to share any of my notes if anybody needs those. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kyan. That's really great. A whistle-stop tour of a tremendous project. So, having kept perfectly to time, there is quite the opportunity for one question for you, and it was Selwyn who in the chat has said, who owns any new IP created out of project collaboration?
Well, it depends where that IP is coming from. If it's an academic, then it's going to be the university, if it's coming from Swansea University. if it's an individual and they are working for a company, under the Patent Act and things like that, if you're an employee and you're creating IP during the course of your business, usually your employer owns that IP. If you're an individual and you're sitting at home and you create something, then that individual owns the IP. Swansea University is not trying to take anybody's IP away from them at all. We're just trying to help them create it.
Great, thank you. So it sounds like it might be a discussion to have, and depending on the specific project and where and when the IP is created. So thank you for that. Right, thank you to all of the speakers. The case study and speaker presentations part of today's event is finished. Now we're going to move on to the more interactive side of things. So I'm going to call upon my colleague Alan Franks to support me in this. So Alan, if you'd like to say hello. Yep.
Hi, can everybody hear me? I am just trying to share my screen. Okay, so if everybody goes to menti.com, that could be on your phone or on your laptop, and type in the code, which is on the screen now, and it's 9368567. And there's a little thumbs up at the bottom. You can tap that if you want to show that you're in. So I'll just give everyone a minute again, and I'll go through the instructions once again. You go to www.menti.com, so just menti.com, and use the code 9368567, which are this week's lottery numbers. And you can, from here, we're going to ask you 3 questions to help develop our future events. We want to kind of make sure that
and if everyone would like to carry on asking questions in the chat room while we're doing this, if you're capable of multitasking, then please do. Alan, you might have to switch your camera off because you've got a bit of a connection issue.
So it's only a couple of questions, and we also want to know a little bit more about yourselves and what you think. I was just saying, yeah, we're going to use this feedback to help create future events, and we also want to hear what kind of obstacles you guys come across. So it's our chance to ask you. We'll go ahead now. People can still join in, but if we go to the first question, it's what are the biggest bottlenecks to you and your innovation? So if you put in your answers there, we'll be able to see what you think. I thought that might come up. Route to market. And what we're going to do with these answers, we're going to collate them and start thinking of how we can make some helpful webinars for you in the future based on these ideas. So route to market is obviously coming across there as a real big issue. Funding sources, yeah. So getting products actually into the NHS. But I think through this time with coronavirus, we've seen that the way of getting things to the NHS has become a lot more streamlined, which is hopefully something that will stay for longer. Route to market, not enough time, getting ideas off the ground. So there's a really helpful and a really diverse mixture of ideas of what you think the biggest bottlenecks are. And we're going to use this information then to hopefully put on quite regular webinars. Okay, I think we'll move on to the next question.
So just while you're doing that, Alan, so route to market is definitely a regular concern, especially in the in life sciences and healthcare sector. So hopefully some of the presentations today have illustrated that the Accelerate programme is quite closely aligned to the Welsh NHS. Obviously, that's not the only route to market for health and social care projects. There's a big world out there, but often having clinical expertise embedded into the beginning of a project does support both the understanding of how to get the products to market, but also what the market needs. So hopefully that's something that we can help with. And, Alan, you're moving on to the next one, so I'll let you introduce that.
So what would you want the next session to be focusing on? We're looking here to have the next one on one of the four. And we've got a tie at the moment, so the options would be obtaining funding, hearing from business experts, seeing more case studies, guidance on intellectual property. So I'll give everyone a little bit more time, but it seems obtaining funding and hearing from business experts are the two biggest ones. Okay. And I think that's everybody's answered, and I'll move on now to the final question. Okay, and the last one is just for us, so we can make sure we stay in touch with you. So if you let us know how you'd want to hear from us, would it be via an email about some of this information you've asked, more events like this, social media, all of the above? So what I'll do, I'll drop in the chat room our Accelerate specific newsletter, and in there we offer a lot of guidance on some of the things we've already talked about. So bear with me a second. And that is our last question, so I'll just throw back to Gwyn. Thank you so much for taking time to do that, menti.com. It's really helpful in shaping what we do next. Back to you, Gwyn.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. And yeah, it really does add a little bit of numbers. We will ask you for your feedback on the event today. We'll follow up the event with a link to the slides and any specific questions. But thank you very much for participating in that. And we're not being paid or supported by it, but I would just say that our experience of using Menti over the last couple of months in order to connect with people online has been really very simple and easy to use. So I would recommend it for people to use at their own event. So just a little bit of a few closing remarks, a little bit of a sum up. Let me just remind you that in the chat we have the link to our portal, which I think you'll find it says lshw.simplydo.co.uk, so Simply Do is the service that we use to provide that portal. But anything that you put in there, anything that you upload in there, and any questions goes through to the Life Sciences Hub, and then will be shared with the partners. So it's an opportunity to progress your project from this point on. Alan has mentioned a few events that the Accelerate team will be organising, and thank you for your input on that. Now we will shape those events around that input. But the next event that the Accelerate team are participating in is the Life Stories Live event, which is on the 3rd of September, and that event is run by Medi Wales, and supports the magazine Life Stories Live that Medi Wales publishes, which is essentially case stories around life stories, health and social care case study projects around Wales. So thank you very much for that. We are going to leave this link open for a while so that everybody can carry on participating in the group chat. So if you've got any questions, the speakers will be staying online, and you've got a few minutes to participate and to drop them any questions, either as a private message or as a message to the group. And while we're doing that, we're going to run a few slides that show some more visual case studies, just to give you a little bit more of exposure to the breadth of the projects that are running through the Accelerate program. So can I just say thank you very much to all of the speakers today. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to those case studies, and it really has really illustrated the breadth and the depth of the projects being undertaken by the Accelerate team. And thank you everybody for participating online. It's rather strange times, and it would have been nicer to have a room full of people that we'd be going off for a coffee or a sandwich with now, but needs must, and so it's really great that we are still connecting regardless of the and thank you very much. And provided Alan and Alex haven't got anything more to tell me that I've missed out or left off,
nope, doing great.
Please pitch in if you have. Then I will say thank you, and I will see you in the chat room and at the next event. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gwyn.
Just before we go, I'd just like to thank everybody again for joining us today. The link will be closed in in about a minute. So if you've got any last email addresses or contact details you want to pop in, now's your chance, and I'll be closing the link down very soon. Thank you.